Excuse me, sir, is this the Delta House?
Sure. Come on in.
They have cold beer and action on the game.
I'm shocked to find that gambling is going on in here.
It's time for the Degenerates Next Door.
Dollar bills, y'all.
Nobody has more fun than we do here at the Degenerates Next Door. We win, sometime we'll lose, but I promise you, we'll out-drink anybody, we'll out-talk anybody, and we're going to have a damn good time talking about these games. My name is Jason Hammer. I do the Hammer and Nigel show in Indianapolis. Rob Kendall does the Kendall and Casey show. And Rob, I'm going to give you the floor here. You were 4-1 last week. That's a 7-3 run over the last 2 weeks. And if we've learned anything from the movie Hangover, it's this.
And you never walk away from the table when you're on a heater.
And you are on a heater right now. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm not going to talk about anything that I want to talk about. I want to hear your words of wisdom. You're on a heater, and you have got action on a Friday game.
Yeah, so let's start with this. And by the way, one of the things that has been pretty good in college, not so much in the NFL, but in college, has been unders so far this year, at least in the games that we've watched. There's a couple kind of trends we've seen so far. Unders have tended to do pretty well when decent teams are playing each other, and then you have seen the haves really sticking it to the have-nots. And one of the things I think the odds makers are starting to catch on to is they're starting to raise those odds up on the haves when they're playing the have-nots. Some of those kind of seemed like free money, like that Wake Forest Ole Miss game last week seemed like free money to me. They've rectified that this week, so we got to get a little more creative when we're picking our games for this Tuesday show.
So Friday night, we've got Big Ten action. Illinois at Nebraska. Nebraska, one of the feel-good stories of this early college football season. Freshman quarterback. Are the Huskers back? They are 9.5-point favorites. The over-under is 43.5. A little Big Ten Friday night lights. Rob Kendall, you're the man that's rolling. What do you got?
Yeah, that line started at 7.5, and it's all the way up to 9.5. We talk about this all the time on the show. You find something good, you find something you like, grab it. And 7.5 is probably a pretty good number there because Nebraska is a really good team, and they're really good at home. But also, Nebraska has a really good defense, one of the best in the nation statistically, and that's what actually has me a little worried on this. The over-under is 43.5, and I'm worried that their D might be too good, like takeaways, like block punts, like getting good field position for their offense, which isn't bad, by the way. Now, Illinois, on the other hand, they also enjoy one of the top 10 scoring defenses in the nation, but both Illinois and Nebraska have gone under in 4 of their last 5 games. I see a defensive affair. Sign me up for that. A little Friday night action. I'm going under 43.5.
Again, last week against the spread, Rob Kendall 4-1. The last 2 weeks against the spread, 7-3.
And you never walk away from the table when you're on a heater.
Now, there's another guy that's on a little bit of a heater here too. Our resident college football pro, the professional handicapper. Because, again, we are not professionals. Although you're picking games at a professional level right now, Rob, this is not how we make our living, right? We're just a bunch of borderline, wink, wink, raging alcoholics that ignore our families for the sake of gambling on the weekend. But David Stefanoff of FollowNeverFade.com, our resident pro, we've had him on for 3 weeks. There have been 3 weeks of games. Each week he picks one game. He's 3-0. He's undefeated. 3 weeks, 3 wins, 3-0.
And you never walk away from the table when you're on a heater.
And he joins us now. David, welcome back. 3 wins, 3 weeks. What do you have lined up for us here?
I'm looking at Rocky Top, Tennessee, and the Oklahoma Sooners. Right now, Vegas opened up at 7. Guys, this is going to be probably the game of the week. Tennessee's blown everybody out. Oklahoma's played pretty good. They've not blown everybody out, but I think they played a lot better competition. Everybody's going to talk about Tennessee's quarterback. Mason Arnold for Oklahoma is just as good. Let me say this real quick. Oklahoma's lost 13 games since 1999 at home. They've lost 2 games in the last 4 years at home, and 2 of them were in the same year. You're giving me Oklahoma and 7 points at home against Tennessee, an unproven Tennessee. They're not playing Kent State this week. They're not playing Chattanooga. This is going to be a different ball game. Oklahoma's got some defense. I think Oklahoma's the play plus the 7. I definitely think the wrong team's favorite here. I know Hammer's going to go his Rocky Top and go for Tennessee. Venables is the coach, defensive minded. They play Tulane pretty good. Don't let that Tulane score make you jump on Tennessee. Mason Arnold threw a bad pick at the end of that game to make that game closer than it was. Oklahoma's defense is way better than Tennessee's. I'm taking Oklahoma plus the 7. And money line. I'm going to sprinkle some money line. But, hey, you guys can follow me after I'm 3-0 with you guys. Let's try to go 4-0. I'm on all platforms, guys, in my plays, Facebook and TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. We've been hot here. We've been hot on VIP. Message me directly on Facebook, David Stephan, followingRFA.com to sign up for my VIP. I don't cost a lot. The difference between me and other cappers, I'll tell you when I go 4-0 and I'll tell you when I go at 0-4. I'll keep the same energy. Indianapolis raised. Give me some support. Thank you, Rob and Hammer again. But I'm taking the Oklahoma Sooners plus 7 points against Hammer, I know, in Rocky Top.
Oh, I think we got some fighting words here. I think, Rob, I'm about to do something that's a little insane.
Uh-oh.
I am going to look our resident pro, David Stefanoff, right in his eyes and go the other direction.
Oh, yeah.
He's in love with the Sooners. He thinks the wrong team is favorite here. I am going with the Tennessee Volunteers, and this is why. I think they have the better quarterback, and I think they have the better coach. And the thing about Josh Heupel, head coach of Tennessee, is this. He's a petty, vindictive guy.
Your type of guy.
And I dig that about him. He's the type of guy that calls for an onside kick against Kent State when you're up 30-0 in the first quarter, which happened last week. And keep this in mind, Josh Heupel was fired by Bob Stoops and Oklahoma 10 years ago. Bob Stoops made Josh Heupel the sacrificial lamb when there were some problems with Oklahoma. Let's be honest, if anybody knows anything about offense, it's Josh Heupel. He did it at Central Florida. He's doing it now at Tennessee. Hot damn, cue up the band. I am going to take the Tennessee Volunteers to go on the road in Norman, a revenge game for their coach, Josh Heupel. Now, you can find different numbers. This is why it's important to shop around, because this game is wild. You could see a spread of 7.5 in some places, down to 6 at the time of this recording on Tuesday. It's like a point and a half swing. So I see FanDuel where I can lay 6.5 with the Tennessee Volunteers. Rob, it's the biggest game on the slate. You're the man that's on fire. Where are you?
I hate to do this to you, Hammer, and I'm doing this begrudgingly, but I saw that 6.5. You're right. I was seeing it 7.5 other places, 7 some places, and then I saw it at 6.5. And I said, man, Tennessee has looked so good through these first several games. I mean, they pounded the crap out of a pretty decent ranked team.
NC State.
And like you said, their coach is a petty a-hole. He's not going to not run up the score. If he has an opportunity to put his boot on their throat, he's going to do it. You're not going to get some sort of backdoor cover. And I don't think these college kids anymore, I don't think they're all that worried about going someplace else. I know I feel horrible because if we lose, it's going to be my fault. But I'm with you. 2 versus 1. 2 versus 1. 2's greater than 1. 2 hearts beating as 1. Tennessee minus 6.5.
I think what we need right now is to hear Rob Kendall singing Rocky Top on my radio show.
Wish that I was on old Rocky Top down in the Tennessee hills.
Let's go!
Ain't no smoggy smoke on Rocky Top. Ain't no telephone bills.
Come on, baby.
I love it.
I did that with overalls and a hat, and a straw hat, too.
Yes, that was a debt that you had paid off to me where you had to come on my radio show and perform Rocky Top. Now, I'm also kind of in love with the over. Like, if I had to pick one of these bets in this game, I would go Tennessee. I'm laying 6.5, but I'm not above a little 2-action parlay here with that over. I'm seeing 57.5 because the Vols, I think, are going to put some numbers up. And even though I like Tennessee's pass rush, I think Oklahoma's been gearing up for this game, so I think you could see some points from the Sooners as well.
You mentioned that, and it's true. All the hype about Tennessee's defense and their quarterback, I can't say his name. What's his name?
Iamaleava.
Thank you. I knew you'd get that. You're one of 7 people on the planet who can say that correctly.
Wouldn't you love to hear Joe Biden try to announce a game where Tennessee was playing and have to say that kid's name?
Tennessee's defense, though, is pretty impressive. That pass rush specifically has been pretty impressive. I know 6.5 is a big number, but, man, I just think Tennessee is definitely, at least on paper, I think they're the better team.
And you're right about the environment that they're going into. It's going to be rocking and rolling. Oklahoma, Norman, the Sooners, the Boomer Sooners going to run out there. That Chuck Wagon's going to get everybody fired up. But Tennessee plays in front of 105,000 people every Saturday when they're at home. They're not intimidated by crowd size when they go on the road. All right, we're going to take a little time out here. There's another big game featuring teams that are no strangers to big stadiums and environments. USC at Michigan. It's bizarre that this is a Big Ten game now, but we'll talk about that when we come back. This is the Degenerates Next Door. Back on the Degenerates Next Door. Rob Kendall is here. I'm Jason Hammer. You heard from our professional. I think the big game on the schedule is Tennessee at Oklahoma. But, man, there's another big one in the big house. USC on the road at Michigan. Again, at the time we're doing this show, USC 5.5-point road favorite in the big house. Over under is 46.5. And Rob, sooner or later, Michigan is going to look like the team that we're used to seeing. But I don't think it's this weekend because I got to be honest. I thought USC would take a step back with their offense with Caleb Williams gone. They have not missed anything at all. The passing game looks good. What they were able to do against LSU. And look, LSU's not the same as they have been, but they've got speed. They've got strong, powerful athletes, and USC could do what they wanted against those guys offensively. And I just don't think Michigan's quarterback is very good. I think Michigan's running game is rock solid. I think their defense is going to feed off a little bit of that crowd who's got that old school Rose Bowl feel for the game this weekend. But I love this USC offense, sans Caleb Williams. So I know it's a long trip, cross country, but I'm going to lay 5.5 with USC here.
Wow, yeah, it's a big number on the road, but you're right. And here's the thing. Michigan, the offense, they once described the Grinch as this, and I think it applies to Michigan's offense. Stink, stank, stunk.
Their kicker may be their best player that's putting points on the board for Michigan right now.
But, and you mentioned it, they can run the ball. And if they run it in not huge chunks, that says to me perhaps we're getting some sustained drives. And their defense, say what you want, is darn good. They were in that Texas game, not super in it, but they hung around for a while. And I think Texas's offense is infinitely better, even as good as USC's is. So I was tempted to take that 5.5 like you are. But, man, you're right, that quarterback is so bad. So what do we do with that? Michigan tried to do everything they could, Hammer, against Texas to screw me over. They went for 2 when it didn't make any difference. They tried an onside kick when it didn't make any difference.
And I love you were in the car when this was going down, and you're trying to follow along on your phone, but you're also texting me at the same time. I could only imagine what your poor wife, who has to deal with your crap anyway, was going through. Baby in the back, baby in the front with you, dealing with the folks that are updating the real-time app when you've got skin in the game.
My wife is immune to everything like a real-life Marge Simpson. You having fun with your friends? No! no, they're trying to take money from our child. They're trying to steal the milk money. I'm going under on this one. 46.5 is the number. It started at 45.5. It's moved up, so I got a point in my direction. Man, I'll tell you what, that's a low number for a team with USC's offensive firepower. Michigan's offense is pretty good. That means I just need a couple of sustained drives with field goals, or, as the kickers have been doing you dirty, no field goals, and our toes are tapping.
Kickers hate me. Even in games I win, they hate me. Like Alabama's kicker just missed a kick out of spite just to give me a middle finger. Like, I got the cover last weekend, but the very first time Alabama goes down the field, their kicker shanks one into the bathroom. And the way this season has gone, that's now called pulling a hammer. Pulling a hammer when the kicker shanks one. All right, so we've talked about some pretty good teams so far. Nebraska, Tennessee, Oklahoma, USC has looked good. Can we talk about some teams that stink, Rob? Because the money you can make on Cal at Florida State is going to spend the same as the money you could win on Tennessee at Oklahoma. So Cal going down to Tallahassee to take on Florida State. Florida State is a 2.5-point favorite. The line is 44.5. What's the old expression? A sucker is born every minute.
Oh, yeah. Sitting right next to one.
You are sitting next to one because there's no way, right? There's absolutely no way Florida State can be 0-4, losing back-to-back games, and Cal is coming in. It's not like Clemson is coming in. It's Cal. So, look, DJU stinks. I get it. Not very good. But sooner or later, Florida State is going to win a game.
Yeah.
I mean, my God, Purdue won a game earlier this year. It was against an FCS opponent who was rebuilding, but they won a game. So there's no way, right? Absolutely no way Florida State goes 0-4. Now, the line is 2.5. It's less than a field goal at home. Against my better judgment, I am going to take the Florida State Seminoles to get that very first win. Joe Namath, your thoughts?
I believe everything that anyone else has watched Chad play impresses me. The same thing impresses them.
What does it mean to you now when the team is struggling?
I want to kiss you. I couldn't care less about the team struggling.
I couldn't care less about the team struggling. I'm going with the Florida State Seminoles. I'm doing the chop. I'm going to take something and set it on fire at my house. I'm going to spike it in the middle of my living room. And damn it, we're winning this bet, Rob.
I hope it works out for you. I'm going to tell you this, though, and I told you this off air last week. I almost took Memphis on the money line, despite being like a 6.5-point underdog. That's how bad Florida State actually is. But I'm with you, Hammer. Cal's not great. They got to go across the country. Florida State can't lose every game. I like this bet with you getting the giving the 2.
So you are looking at another team coming off a very disheartening ass beating, and that is the Purdue Boilermakers. They are on the road up at Corvallis. Always an interesting environment up there. Oregon State hosting Purdue. Oregon State is a 5.5-point favorite. The over-under right around 49.5.
We should market that phrase, disheartening ass beating. Yeah, I went back and forth.
Election season is right around the corner, and there's a lot of folks that are about to have a disheartening ass beating.
I went back and forth on this because 49.5 is a big number, but Purdue's defense isn't great, and I don't think Oregon State's necessarily is either. Now, look, Oregon State just got the crap beat out of them by Oregon, but not in the first half. That was a ball game at halftime, and they were able to move the ball. They got more than 300 yards of total offense. Oregon State looked pretty good in their first 2 wins against Idaho State and San Diego State. And while those guys aren't world beaters, I think they're a lot closer to where Purdue is in terms of talent. Oregon State is 11-3 against the spread in September in their last 14 games. Purdue is 5-11 against the spread in their last 16 games. I'm not saying either of these two teams are world beaters, but Purdue going across the country, Purdue's awful. I'm fading Purdue until they give me a reason to. Otherwise, I'm laying the 5.5.
You used the phrase earlier in the show, free money. Now, there's no such thing as free money. Any gambler will tell you there's no such thing. Like, when I hear people say that, it frustrates me because we've all been beaten on something we thought was free money. Yeah. But let's be honest. Hindsight being 2020, Notre Dame against Purdue last week was free money.
Now, what's interesting about that, too, is we got it at 10.5 on the show, and we thought it was low. I told you, and you know I'm the cheapest man alive, but I was like 7.5. You got to be kidding me. Purdue is awful. Purdue is awful, and it's 7.5. And, boy, were we right. I wish I'd have bet $1 million.
Purdue was preseason 18 in the Big Ten. Like, they're off the list of 10, right? The conference only recognizes 10. It's the Big Ten. Purdue was preseason picked to be at the bottom of the food chain, and because Notre Dame has a bad loss, all of a sudden, that's like a 7-point spread?
Yeah. It was. I kept using that phrase to you, and you're right. There is no such thing as free money. But I was like, this line is ridiculous. And I wish I had the cojones to do the bet I wanted to do because, well, we would be eating at Long John Silver's right now instead of,
I do enjoy Long John Silver's. Like, I think I'm one of the 5 people that help keep this company afloat. Hush puppies are great. Those little crumbly things that you have at the bottom where the chicken is, and oh, it's fantastic. Long John Silver's like fried chicken planks, better than the fish planks. And that's a hill that I'm going to die on. All right, I am going to look at a game that is so bad, but it's not quite the Degenerates special.
Oh, okay.
Duke at Middle Tennessee State.
You're back on Duke, huh?
Well, there's a reason. So Duke, they are a 14.5-point favorite at Middle Tennessee State. The over-under is 52.5. Now, earlier this year, I stayed up late watching a god-awful game, Duke at Northwestern. Some of the worst quarterback play I've seen in a long time. We ended up winning that bet. Yep. Went to overtime, but we cashed that ticket. So now Duke is going on the road to Middle Tennessee State, who's not awful. They are a 14.5-point home dog, but I'm looking at the total here. I'm seeing 52 right now. Ooh. 52 is the total, and I got to be honest with you, much like the rent, that seems a little too damn high.
Too damn high.
I've seen Duke's quarterback play, and while I haven't studied Middle Tennessee State as closely as I should have, their defense is not bad. The fact that they're only a 14.5-point dog to a power conference team, that should tell you everything you need to know. So I am going under. We're going under 52 points, Duke at Middle Tennessee State. All right, Rob, you have got one more play on the board. What are we looking at?
Yeah, okay, so Notre Dame is not great, but they're also not bad. They're somewhere in between, which is what Notre Dame usually is, somewhere in between, an overhyped hype machine. But don't give me this 66-7 crap against Purdue. Notre Dame's offense is garbage. Hot garbage. Stinks. S-T-I-N-X. But their defense, awesome. Defense, awesome. They're playing Miami at home, Miami of Ohio at home, and the over-under is 43.5. Now, I think they'll win the game, but Miami's defense isn't horrible. They only gave up 13 against Northern Illinois and 27 against Cincinnati. 43.5 is a tiny number, but I believe Notre Dame can be bad enough on offense to pull it off for me. I could easily see a 24-14 type win, which gets it done. Give me the under 43.5.
All right, we're going to take a timeout. When we come back, Rob is going to get nuts.
Yeah.
We've got a Degenerate special, and we'll recap the plays that we've got on the board. This is the Degenerates Next Door. Back on the Degenerates Next Door, I'm Jason Hammer. Rob Kendall is here. And Rob, you're on a generational run. Like Antonio Brown's Twitter account. Right now, you are on a generational run. So I think now is the time. Are you ready to get nuts?
I am ready to get nuts.
Are you ready to get nuts?
Let's get nuts.
All right. You want to get nuts? Come on.
Let's get nuts! Lights out! Now you want to get nuts? Come on! Let's get nuts.
Let's get nuts, Rob. What do you got?
All right, so Nebraska wasn't really on anyone's radar when the year began in terms of making a big noise in the Big Ten or in the national title picture. But they're undefeated coming into this week. They're a heavy favorite on Friday, as we discussed earlier, and their defense is really good. And quite frankly, if you look at their extended schedule, it isn't exactly the world's toughest. They got 2 really hard games remaining, which is at Ohio State and at USC. And Hammer, if they can win one of those games and go 11-1 as a Big Ten team, there is a good chance that they could end up in the Final 12. They've got a freshman QB who is phenomenal, who seems to be getting better. And so the question you have to ask yourself is, do you think Nebraska could pull off an upset against either USC or Ohio State? And if the answer is yes, then you would have a Nebraska team in the Final 12. And right now, you can get Nebraska at plus 650 to make the Final 12.
All right. Want to get nuts? Come on. Let's get nuts! Lights out! Now you want to get nuts? Come on. Let's get nuts.
I like that. Timu Patrick Mahomes has been balling for Nebraska. Aldi Patrick Mahomes is putting on a show. And a lot of Nebraska plays for you this week.
Look, I'm a sucker for nostalgia, and I just love the fact that Nebraska might be good again.
So, with that being said, let's talk about a game that absolutely nobody cared about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, it's got a few more eyeballs on it. It's almost tough to call it this, but I still think it falls into the category of a Degenerate Special.
It's time for Hammer's Degenerate Special.
Everybody's in love with Northern Illinois right now.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody saw what they did to Notre Dame. They were more physical than Notre Dame. They bossed Notre Dame around. But now, here comes Buffalo. Buffalo at Northern Illinois. Buffalo is a 14-point underdog. And listen, this is Maction, baby.
Yeah.
This is what we signed up for. Anything can happen when you're dealing with Maction. So Northern Illinois, as the hunter, was really good against Notre Dame. But now all these MAC teams are looking at Northern Illinois as the biggest game on their schedule.
Yeah.
So it seems like, historically, and Rob is a Notre Dame fan, you know this, when somebody's coming off of a big win, there's a little bit of a hangover in that next game. I don't know if Northern Illinois loses this game, but 14 points is an awful lot because Buffalo is 17th in the nation defensively, and they're pretty good against the run. So Northern Illinois, they want to run the ball. They want to control the trenches. All that tells me is that there's going to be a lot of clock being burned here. And if I got a team that's good against the run, good defensively, and catching 2 touchdowns, I'm going to take it. Prior to that Notre Dame game, there was no way this line was going to be 14 points. I think Northern Illinois played out of their mind. They got up. They got hyped up. They saw the Golden Dome. They saw touchdown Jesus, and Notre Dame did Notre Dame things. They had a letdown after a big win. I think this is a hangover spot here. Give me Buffalo catching 14. That is this week's Degenerate Special. All right, Mr. Moneybags, Mr. 4-1 last week, Mr. 7-3 the last 2 weeks. Let's get rich. What do you got?
All right, Friday night we got Nebraska playing host to Illinois, like under 43.5. Saturday it's Tennessee laying 6.5 at Oklahoma. Michigan playing host to USC. I'm going under 46.5. Oregon State laying 5.5 at home against Purdue. Notre Dame, Miami of Ohio. I'm going under 43.5. And if you want to get nuts, you can grab Nebraska right now at plus 650 to make the Final 12.
Like the representative of Brownsburg, Indiana, I am on Rocky Top. Shop around and get that best number. 6.5 is what I saw on FanDuel. It's higher other places. If you want the Vols, strike while the iron's hot here, unless you think Oklahoma money's going to come in like our pro David Stefanoff said, then maybe you can wait a little bit and get a better number. But as of right now for the show, I'm in on the Vols minus 6.5. I like USC minus 5.5 at the Big House. Florida State gets on the board. One of those games where you just got to hold your nose and make the bet and cash the ticket when you're done. Florida State minus 2.5 at home against Cal. Duke at Middle Tennessee State. We're going under 52 points. And the Degenerate special this week, Buffalo getting 2 touchdowns at Northern Illinois. Again, Northern Illinois not sneaking up on anybody anymore, and 2 touchdowns is an awful lot. All right, that is it for us today. Good luck in all of your wagers. Don't forget, we do the NFL show on Thursday. That will drop this Thursday around 1 o'clock Eastern time. For Rob Kendall, for David Stefanoff, I'm Jason Hammer. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, may the odds be ever in your favor.